What's up, geometry scholars? In today's class, we're going to be working through regions questions involving various quadrilaterals, including the square, the rectangle, and everyone's favorite, the rhombus. Let's take a look at the first problem from this problem set, question number 4 from the August 2022 regions. And it says a quadrilateral has diagonals that are perpendicular but not congruent. This quadrilateral could be what? A square, rhombus, a rectangle, or an isosceles trapezoid. So the first thing I'm going to do is recognize that we're talking about diagonals that are not congruent, okay? But if you're a little bit hazy on the various properties of these quadrilaterals, specifically square, rhombus, and rectangle, I would urge you guys to draw your attention to this document that Mr. Chan and I created together. And here we've got the various properties of a parallelogram. And we know that a rectangle is, of course, a parallelogram, but it has congruent diagonals. Okay, with, of course, one right angle. And again, we're looking for a quadrilateral where the diagonals are not congruent, where they're not congruent. So what we can do is we can rule out question number 2 because we just realized that the diagonals are congruent. And we're going to keep moving. A rhombus is a parallelogram with congruent sides. And you know what? For good measure, we'll take a look at a square. Square is a parallelogram and a rectangle, which means that a square has congruent diagonals along with congruent sides. And so because of this, we know that we can rule out option 1, right? Because it has congruent diagonals as well. We haven't really explored isosceles trapezoids, but if you do reference the other document I shared with you, you can easily rule out option number 4. And it makes sense why option 2 is the correct answer. It is a rhombus. And if you're a little confused, you can always sketch out a rhombus on your own. And it's going to look a little something like this. And I know that the diagonals, which we have here in red, are perpendicular. I know that you know that. However, they are not congruent. And so option 2 is the correct answer. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to work on the remaining multiple choice questions. And let's take a look at the open-ended response on the reverse side. Let's take a look at question 32 involving quadrilateral gnats. And so what you're going to do is you're going to plot the coordinates. And it says that prove that this quadrilateral is a rhombus. And it says the use of the set of axes below this grid is optional, but you definitely want to use it. What you're going to do right now is you're going to reference this document, and you'll notice on the right side of the page, it shows the easiest way to prove each of these shapes. So if we draw our attention to the rhombus, the easiest way to prove a quadrilateral is a rhombus is by demonstrating that all sides are congruent. In a few minutes, I'm going to talk to you about the model response sets, or the grading tools that teachers are going to use to grade your performance. That way you can identify the number of points that you're going to earn on this assignment. And welcome back, geometry scholars. This problem is worth 4 points. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a few examples that other high school students have completed, and we're going to see how many points they earned. So we're going to start with all the ones that received full credit, 4 points, in which the student gave a complete and correct response. So here is what I know. You need to prove that this quadrilateral is a rhombus, and I can see that this individual was able to determine the lengths of each of these sides, and they were able to successfully identify the length of NS. It looks like TS, likewise AT, and NA. And you know what? It's a little sloppy. It's not super organized, but you know what? The math is there. And this individual wrote all sides are equal, and the quadrilateral is a rhombus. And that's all you need to earn full credit. Let's take another look. Here is what I know. So I'm going to draw my attention to the end, and it says since parallelogram NAST has 2 congruent consecutive sides, it is a rhombus. And so they first proved that this is a parallelogram, and I know that they did this when I look right here, and it looks like they got opposite sides are parallel, and then they've got, it looks like 2 consecutive sides. And so that's all you need to do to prove that this is a rhombus, and they've got a complete and correct response. So this student also earned a full 4 points, and they did something similar. They were able to identify that they were parallel because opposite sides have the same slope. They're parallel. And then it says that it's a rhombus because the diagonals are congruent. So they involved another property of the rhombus, and this is great. All right, so those earned full credit. So this individual did all the math, right? The math looks perfect, was able to prove that all four sides are congruent, but because they did not write a concluding statement, they didn't write that sentence, they only got 3 points instead of 4. So that's why Mr. Chan and I are always telling you guys to write a brief little sentence. This student only received half credit because they made a simplification error and did not write a concluding sentence. So the math sadly was off. This student also received 2 points because they made a conceptual error by concluding that a quadrilateral with perpendicular diagonals is a rhombus. And so that's true, but it also could be true for a square. So you want to make sure that you're specific and unique to each relevant property. It's for this particular example, it said they had the correct work to prove that this is a rhombus. However, the concluding statement was incorrect. And what did this person write? They wrote, it is a rhombus because both sides are congruent. That's not enough to demonstrate that this is a rhombus. And then this student earned 0 points. Despite, a good effort, there were some challenges there, and they were not able to successfully identify or prove that this was a rhombus. In fact, they said the opposite. They said this was not a rhombus. So, ladies and gentlemen, read the instructions, think about the objective, and what you're going to do is you're going to apply all these properties as you're working through these problems.